US universities still use the term dirty war as a catch-all phrase to describe the time of the 1976-83 dictatorship. By doing so, they perpetuate the false myth that there were no crimes against humanity in Argentina. If there was a dirty war, it means that the desaparecidos did not perish as the result of a genocidal plan. It means that the people who were thrown alive from military planes into the Atlantic, that the young women killed after giving birth, should be counted instead as having died in non-existent shootouts in an imaginary civil war that just got a little messy. These US universities refuse to hear the anguished plea from the relatives of these victims, from death camp survivors, and from observers such as myself, who time and again protest against the use of this abhorrent term in academia. In my mind, it is a mix of sloppy scholarship, intellectual laziness, and appealing to the clickbait phrase that, dirty war, it became such a clickbait phrase, it's easy. You just, how do you describe, journalists and academics say to me, but how will you describe Argentina? Well, it's state terror regime or dictatorship. Dictatorship is a good word. And it's also responsible. So, have U.S. academics not read the records of the 1985 Juntas trial? Maybe some of you saw the movie 1985, which was nominated for the Oscar. It's on Amazon, if not. When the court dismissed the dirty war defense tactic put forward by the 9 former junta members, the court carefully considered the argument that the desaparecidos had died in an actual war between the military and armed guerrillas, but finally dismissed it because it was not able to find any credible evidence of such a large-scale confrontation. In 2011, after the amnesty laws that had that had protected the military for about 2 decades from prosecution were struck down, I was called to testify in one of the new rounds of human rights trials. I was there to talk about the kidnapping of a group of 12 relatives of missing people. The relatives, they not only kidnapped their children, but they then murdered the relatives in 1977. I had not only known them personally because they came to the Herald to tell me about the kidnapping of their children, I had miraculously not perished with them myself because 2 of them were taken from a meeting at a bar outside the Herald, and I was supposed to meet with them. And I think it's just that the kidnappers arrived before they arrived to the bar. Because if they had arrived earlier to the bar, they would have called me to the Herald because that was the deal I worked out with them. They were scared of coming to the Herald. They were scared of calling from their homes to the Herald to me. And so I worked out, well, there's a bar called the Comet, on the corner over here. There's a public phone. You go to the Comet, you call me from there, and I'll go over to you. No danger of your phone being intercepted. They had agreed with me that day that they were going to call me from there. Phone call never came. I'd assumed, for 20 years, I assumed that they had been taken somewhere else. When I researched, 20 years later, when I researched their disappearance, I found out that actually they had gone to the Comet to see me. And so had they called me and I'd been there, I would have gone with them. So I was there at the court to testify about the kidnapping of this group of 12 people. This group came to see me regularly at the Herald. It was made up of 3 mothers, 1 father, a sister and a brother of desaparecidos, plus 2 French nuns, and 4 young people who helped these relatives in their search for their loved ones. The kidnapping, torture, and death of these 12 defenseless people was a crime of such a heinous nature that it is among the most reviled crimes of the dictatorship. It's, if you ask somebody about, in Argentina, everybody knows about the French nuns and the 3 mothers. I recently wrote a story for The Guardian relating how the death flight plane from which these 12 people were thrown had been found still flying for a commercial aviation company in the U.S., and about the plan to return it to Argentina to be put on display at the ESMA death camp from where these persons were taken. And now that ESMA death camp, of course, is a museum and a place of memory. It's actually called un espacio de memoria, not a museum. So when I was put on the witness stand, given the obviously indefensible nature of the crime, the defense lawyers of these perpetrators, who kidnapped the mothers and the French nuns, They pulled their dirty war tactic on me. Didn't I realize the scale of the guerrilla threat? Didn't I realize that the guerrillas were funded by Cuba? Didn't I realize that these deaths were simply excesses that occurred in the framework of a dirty war? They asked me. The judges didn't allow the question, but I asked for permission to respond to it. Nobody knows for sure how many people were murdered by your clients at the ESMA, I said. But all the best estimates run at around 5,000. So I have a question for you, lawyers. Could you tell me how many ESMA officers died in your imagined confrontations? The lawyers didn't know. I did. Only one, I informed them. Lieutenant Jorge Mayol in 1976, apparently from friendly fire from other Navy officers during one of the ESMA kidnapping raids in Buenos Aires. The defense lawyers fell silent and there were no more questions. 5,000 to 1 at the ESMA. There was no war, dirty or otherwise. It was a rabbit hunt.